Yeah, I think that pointing to one thing as morality and one thing as evil is counterintuitive because everyone exists within their own truths and within what they define for themselves as morality.
Hi, my name is Isaac. And my name is Wayne. And this is Armored Apologetics.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
All right, so here's a quick question for you. Can a good God and evil exist at the same time?
I think that's a hard one because I think evil and I think it depends on your definition of morality.
Gotcha.
Of your definition of morality and evil. I think that that two opposing forces can exist, and I think that it's kind of like the nature of the universe that two opposing forces kind of always exist to keep the other one in balance.
Gotcha.
But I think that the actual a moral God and like an evil like devil or something I think is up to interpretation to a degree. And so I think they can exist. I think so, but it's up to your definition, because a moral, like someone might view Satan as their moral God, for example.
Gotcha.
On the side of a Satanist or like a Wiccan cult, they might view Satan as their moral God and then God as their evil. And so it's really up to just how, I think, because truth is relative and not as universal as we give it credit, that it's not one of either two ways,
Gotcha. So you think that rather because you think, for example, that morality has no real source, for example.
Well, yeah, I think that pointing to one thing as morality and one thing as evil is counterintuitive because everyone exists within their own truths and within what they define for themselves as morality. And so I think I think they moral and evil can exist in the same plane, but it's up to your definition.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for your answer. All right.
What we're dealing with today is the problem of evil. And I know a lot of people actually deal with this problem and they don't understand what it is.
When we're talking about the word evil, there are two categories that we can look at from a biblical point of view. The first category is a well-known but misunderstood one, and that is destruction. The Hebrew word ra, is the word often used in the Old Testament when defining what God does as quote unquote evil. An example, it says in the book of Exodus that God repented of the evil that he was going to do to Israel. When we look at what that word ra means, what we see there is that God was turning away. The word repent means to turn away. He was turning away from the destruction that he was going to cause Israel. Destruction, that word ra, is often used to define destruction. When we translate that literally to an English translation, that's where we see the word evil. Now, is that what evil actually is? Absolutely not. When we think about evil, often what's being described is actions that are morally wrong. This is the second way to look at this concept of evil. Actions that are morally wrong are only morally wrong based off of what God says is wrong. An example, in the Ten Commandments, it says that one should not covet their neighbor's wife, or to pursue a person's wife is entirely wrong. So that would be evil, right? In the New Testament, the man Paul says that where there is no law, there is no sin. When we are looking at the concept sin, we're not talking about black ooze that drips from the ceiling or anything like that. We're literally addressing what God says he does not want to happen. So when we're looking at evil, evil is defined by what God says he does not want to happen. When Paul says where there is no law, there is no sin, essentially, if God didn't say it was wrong, that means that it's not wrong, or in other words, it's not evil.
What I think is good, that's what's good. What you think is good, that's what's good. What's evil. So you would say God literally puts out this commandment. This across the board is what is evil. Why should we not believe the person, or why should we think that God says this one commandment is objective? Why should we not just think, okay, well, it's my truth, your truth?
Okay, so that's a really good question. Relative truths are one of the, to be completely open, one of the most confusing ideas that could have ever existed in mankind. Here's an example. In America, it is entirely illegal to sell cocaine and to use cocaine. It does not matter how anyone feels about it. If they use cocaine in the open, or they are caught using cocaine in secret, they will be arrested and they will serve time in jail. You might not feel that is correct. In your head or in someone's heart, they might think, I think it's right to use cocaine. It's just recreational and I like it. But that does not stop you or the individual from having to serve time in jail. The idea that my truth being relative impacts what happens to me is not true. Another example, if truth is relative and I say my truth is relative and that other person over there, their truth is relative, that means that there is absolutely no fault on the person that comes up to another individual and says, I like that laptop. I'm going to take it from you because in my head, my truth says that this is right. You cannot tell that person that they're wrong if you believe all truth is relative. The idea that truth is relative does not fit with any culture or community standard of right and wrong. If that was the case, there would be high levels of anarchy. If a baby is seen by a human being and they take a knife and they cut that baby in half, everybody is going to react to that action as horrible. Does that mean now that because the person who's doing the action, their truth is relative, that that action is no longer wrong? Everyone naturally would disagree. The idea that truth is relative does not make truth truth. That makes it an opinion. Opinions are relative. Truth is always based off of facts that cannot be changed. For example, it's not how you feel about gravity that makes us stay on the floor. If gravity exists, that means that we will have to stay on the floor. If you feel gravity does not exist, you will still have to stay on the floor. That truth cannot be changed. And that is the same case when it comes to God being almighty and him being the person who sets the rules. If God is almighty, that means that he is the one that sets everything in place based off of what he believes is right and wrong.
All right, thanks. That was the problem of evil. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I hope we answered this problem of evil sufficiently for you, and this is Armored Apologetics.